Last year in August, I made a video called Pokemon Brick Bronze Review, in which I reviewed Pokemon Brick Bronze as it was in 2018 before it got deleted. Recently, while replaying through the game, I thought to myself, is it just me or did I leave out some stuff in the review from last year? Maybe I was still wearing those rose-tinted nostalgia glasses. So for the sake of me sleeping peacefully at night, I'm going to re-review the game as it is today. Of course, I am not talking about one specific copy of the game since there are many, but I will talk about how the game in general holds up after all these years, and I am going to dive deeper into the nitty-gritty stuff and go more in-depth than last time. Of course, if you haven't already, I highly recommend you go ahead and watch the Pokemon Brick Bronze review video I did last year, as in this video I will expand upon what I already said last year without repeating myself too much. Alright then, with that out of the way, let's begin. I'm not going to bore you again with the history of PBB, as it's been covered a million times, so we are going to go straight to the features again. Pokemon Brick Bronze's features, in most copies at least, are from Generation 7, with a few features added from Generations 8 and 9. The game still features an almost complete map, most of the mainline national decks from Gen 7, with a few added Pokemon from Gens 8 and 9, Mega Evolution and Z-Moves, a semi-complete story revolving around Team Eclipse, the Trade Resort and Battle Coliseum, and the Royal League and Victory Road, which were added in last year in 2023. In last year's review, I said that the storyline was a combination of BDSP and X and Y's story, with Team Eclipse having the same fundamental goal, using the legendary Pokemon Hoopa to create a better and more beautiful world for Pokemon. In my opinion, I think the storyline still holds up, but not as well as it used to back in 2018. One problem I have with the story is that at times, the game treats Team Eclipse far too seriously, when in some cases they really aren't as big of a threat as they might seem. The game does have some really tense and well-written moments, like in Amphion City or Demon's Doom. However, they do also have moments such as in Mount Igneous, Roscoe Beach, or Old Aradia, where they come across as a complete joke trying to catch Groudon, Kyogre, and Victini. I think that the destroy the world part of their plan is now kind of an overused trope, which is also more of a double-edged sword for them, since on one hand they paint themselves as these really dedicated and resourceful people who are trying to create a better world for Pokemon, kind of like Team Plasma, but on the other hand, it makes them appear as these borderline terrorist people who just want to blow stuff up. If I were to fix the Team Eclipse storyline, I would lean harder on the create a new world for Pokemon and mostly cut out the destroy the world part, since in my opinion that would make a more interesting story. If we look at what Cypress is saying, his plan does kind of make sense. I do have to say that after looking at people who make competitively perfect Pokemon, a lot of Pokemon are treated more like Roman gladiators than anything else, so his plan to make a better world is justified for the most part. In addition, if we were to go down this route, Team Eclipse would actually make it seem like the player is the one who is evil, which would be a great twist on the formula in my opinion. Basically everything I said last year about the game's balancing still applies, except for the fact that it somehow got even worse with the Royal League. Here's the updated graph with the level curve compared to other mainline games. Once again, guys, this is not normal. Please take your nostalgia glasses off for a second and take one more look at this graph. Sure, maybe the new dev team was thinking of making the Elite Four and Champion level 100, because this is supposed to be the final boss of the game, since there is no post-game, but what if you don't want to breed for competitive Pokemon, complete the extra shiny hunt? What if you are just a regular player who just wants to play the game normally in a reasonable amount of time? In that case, you are forced to grind relentlessly, which takes up a lot of time, and grinding for several hours straight does make the average player lose motivation for playing the game. Remember what I said last time. If the game is too hard, it will make newer, less experienced players turn around due to their inability to overcome the challenges that they face. The Elite Four's levels are too high. Don't get me wrong, their Pokemon are also really good, but the Elite Four doesn't really encourage you to find unique strategies to deal with their Pokemon, since you're going to get destroyed anyway, and instead just expects you to have perfect competitive Pokemon at your disposal from the get-go. Almost the same problem happens in BDSP, but the roles are swapped since the Elite Four have the competitive Pokemon and you have the over-leveled Pokemon. In the mainline Pokemon games, if you are a bit under-leveled for a fight, you can still come up with strategies to defeat your opponent, but the game's level curve does allow you to get back on track and better prepare for the next fight. Here, after defeating a gym leader, you don't even get time to breathe because the next important trainer's Pokemon are already 10 levels above yours. Do you see the problem now? So what is the solution then? Buff all the important trainers' teams but lower their Pokemon levels so that they can provide a more fair challenge. This change would actually make you get creative with your strategies without requiring ridiculous amount of grinding, which is exactly what we want, and is also what some other fan games such as Renegade Platinum do really well. One thing that I didn't really get to touch on in the review was the quality of life, which in 2024 really doesn't hold up well at all. For starters, I'm worried that the game has too many microtransactions. Sure, the devs do have to get their money somehow, but it feels like they only added more to the problem the initial dev team left behind. The game has microtransactions for everything. For starters, for lottery tickets, for Ash Greninja, for Master Balls, for ball stamps, for ticks, and worst of all, for BP. Speaking of which, battle points in this game are horrendously bad. You can use these battle points in the BP shop in the Battle Coliseum to buy prizes, however those prizes include some very important TMs. These TMs should never be in the BP shop. In almost every single mainline game, these TMs are accessible before the 8th gym or worst case scenario before the league, no questions asked. This basically makes them impossible to attain for the average player since the BP earning mechanic is also broken. The maximum amount of BP you can gain per battle is 5. You cannot earn BP by matching the same person for an hour after beating them once. In order to afford the TM for, let's say, Earthquake, you will need to win 18 battles. Let's say that each battle takes roughly 5 minutes with 1 minute in between. So that would be 108 minutes or 1 hour and 48 minutes for just one TM. But wait, that is the best case scenario. The Coliseum is filled with champion level trainers, each player having perfectly competitive Pokemon teams, meaning that you would have to battle those players and win. The average trainers playthrough Pokemon are nowhere near perfect, so they stand basically no chance against these types of players, making any one of those TMs extremely difficult if not impossible to obtain. Even getting a decently put together team for the main adventure mode is a nightmare, let alone competitive teams. The move relearner alone costs 30,000 Pokédollars per move, and the move tutor is even more at 50,000. In every Pokemon game since Sword and Shield, besides BSP, the move relearning feature has been free and easily accessible and has no excuse being this expensive in this game. Okay, maybe the move tutor is sort of understandable, but at least make it a little cheaper. Do you know how much 30,000 Pokédollars is? You would need to have to battle one of these rematchable trainers roughly 12 times in order to afford one single move. 20 times if you want the move tutor, and not to mention, these guys don't even give that much money. They only give like 2,500 Pokédollars per battle, so have fun grinding for the next 12 hours straight. Another thing that I mentioned in last year's review is the HMs. By the time the game became free to play, HMs were already obsolete thanks to Pokemon Sun and Moon removing them, so there was no reason to have this many HMs again. Thankfully, this problem can be easily fixed by doing what Black and White and X and Y did, only keep the useful HMs and get rid of the rest. In our case, we will only keep Fly, Surf, and Rock Climb. Once again, it is conclusion time. In the year of our Lord, 2024, is Pokemon Brick Bronze still worth playing and still holding up? The answer is a bit more complicated than it might seem at first glance. If you want to play Pokemon Brick Bronze in 2024 in order to relive the good old days and get some of that nostalgia back, by all means, go straight ahead, play the game as you wish, you will not regret it. If instead, you are wondering more about the future of the game and want to continue playing this game, it really depends. It has been 6 years since the game was first taken down, and some features have, of course, become outdated. The question now becomes, if we want to keep playing this game, is it worth modernizing it and making it on par with the mainline games and other fan games, or do we keep the nostalgia factor in? Even though I wrote that question into the script, I see that the nostalgia factor part can unfortunately be used as an excuse, just as the word faithful, the term not the lead developer, has been used to describe Pokemon BDSP, aka an excuse for being lazy, rushed, and cutting corners and not adding anything new. If this game is to survive and thrive, it needs to be modernized. We need to rebalance the level curve, get rid of unnecessary HMs, make some items easier and or possible to obtain, such as the Battle Coliseum TMs, make the move relearner free, make all the overall trainers rematchable, and just listen to the community more in general. I know this might sound like I hate this game and I'm very harsh towards it, but in reality it's quite the opposite. I'm making this very video not because I hate the game, but because I love the game. I want to see this project go forth and gradually evolve with time, becoming a better and better Pokemon game as it goes on, so that one day we can look back and say, Pokemon Brick Bronze, what a legendary video game that was.